With the amp rack done, it's time to move on to up underneath the driver's seat and figure out how the DSR1 is going to go into place. I don't want to get all this wired up and then run into a problem there. I've already pulled the bolts out. I used that same E12 inverted Torx looking thing that was in the back here holding that on, and there's 4 of them. To start the process underneath the seat, the first step is to flash our DSR1 for this car. There's software that you have to download onto your device, which we've made a ton of videos showing you how to do. But the reason why I want to do this now as opposed to later is so that I can get the instructions, because at the end of the flash, they give you instructions. It's kind of a great idea if you think about it. It makes you make sure that your unit is up to date, it's ready to go, and it's already flashed for the car. And you have your full list of instructions at that point, as opposed to just kind of like going at it and then realizing when you're done that, oh my gosh, it's not up to date or anything like that, which would suck. For those of you that are new to this, they just ask you year, make, model of your vehicle, and that will tell it what software they need to download into the device. It also asks, is it the model with amplifier, the model without amplifier, provide you pictures of your radio, and then most importantly, they'll tell you which harness you need in order to interface with this, as well as give you any extra harnesses that you may need. One of the cool things about the DSR1 is it gives you the ability to select what you want your factory bass, mid, and treble to be. If you want your subwoofer level to be your bass, you can tell it to do that. You can also use it to control punch EQ. In this case, we have a volume knob. We can turn our bass tone control into our punch EQ level. When you're done answering all the questions, just select flash. It'll flash the module and it'll bring you to this page right here. And this is the information we want. That is going to take us off to this screen. You scroll down until you find your specific install, which in this case would be the install guide for the Ram 1500 2019 to 21. Here's what we're looking at. These are the factory harnesses that are typically plugged into the amplifier. We're going to be removing the amplifier. It's also showing us a load resistor pack that's in the box that we're going to need. Even though we're not keeping the factory amplifier, we still need the load resistor pack that goes off to the radio. That tells the radio that the factory amplifier is still there and doing what it needs to do. And then of course here's the RCA plug, and these 2 harnesses here will have all our speaker wires in it. And that's what I wanted to just double check to see if I needed the load resistor pack for this particular installation. If you get your harness and it doesn't have the load resistor pack in it, make sure you contact them. Most of them should by now. The first generation harnesses didn't, and then of course they've updated them to include them. One last thing you need to do before we're done with this is check the firmware on the DSR1, which is done through the Rockford Updater app. That can only be done on a Windows machine, whereas everything else can be done on Windows or Mac. The current firmware version for the DSR1 at the time of filming is 1.9.4, which conveniently enough this has 1.9.4. So our unit is up to date. Now, knowing what we know about the harnesses and how they can be configured, we could head over into the car, remove the factory amplifier, figure out what kind of bracket we need to make in order to mount this down into place, and then kind of finish our thought process as far as how we want to run our wiring. This is the factory amplifier. Those 3 harnesses are located right here on the end. I've already unplugged them. There's 2 10mm bolts that are holding this factory amplifier into place. With those bolts out, this will easily come out. A couple things to know about Dodge Ram. This location underneath the seat is going to have something in it. The black, like this, is the amplifier for this particular car. If there's a silver box underneath here, more than likely that is going to be the fake engine noise or ANC module. If you're adding just a sub and you see that silver box, there is a bypass harness you're going to need to get to loop past that so that you don't get the noise. If you're going to be adding a sub to this system, you also need to loop past it or you will get the noise in the subwoofer. Because we're removing the amplifier entirely, we don't have to worry about it. The amplifier just screws into this bracket, and this bracket is actually pretty nice. My plan is to remove the amplifier from the bracket, make a new bracket to attach to this one so that I can put my whole DSR assembly up underneath this seat in a pretty way. Let's go take a look. Even though we kind of fast forwarded ahead to flash the unit first before we unboxed it, I want to take a minute and just kind of go through everything that's included in this box in case you've never seen one before. Naturally, this is the DSR1. On the side, you have the USB programmer built into it. The cable for that is located underneath here. Red expansion, vehicle input, signal RC input, high level or low level switch. This DSP can be used as an AR or as a standalone 4-channel input, 8-channel output, high level or low level DSP. On the opposite side, we have the input for the Rockford bass knob, as well as our 8 RC outputs that plug in here. Underneath the foam insert, your main input harness. If you're going to be doing an AR installation, this will not be needed. You'll be using the AR cable. If you're using it as a standalone high level or low level input, then you will need this. It has an auxiliary input, it has a digital input, and then it has its 4-channel high level or low level inputs. If you're going to be using it high level, cut the RCAs off. If you're going to be using it low level, leave the RCAs on. It also has a constant 12 volts, a ground, a remote in, and a remote out. All the wires will have these little flags on the end of them telling them what they're for. Your USB programmer, and then your 8-channel RC output harness. The instructions that come with it basically tell you to go online and update it. ACH4 harness. This is the load resistor pack that we were talking about. You're going to be using this. This is the harness that is going to plug into the input side of the DSR. When doing an AR installation like this, you'll also have the vehicle harness. If you're just doing it high level to low level, there will be no vehicle harness. And then this end will go off to the factory amplifier. These two harnesses are for speakers, and this little black and white harness here will not be used for this installation. The load resistor harness is designed to go here. These plugs all have colors on them to make it simple to follow along. You'll also notice on here there's red and a blue connector. They're not going to be used. And on here now is the remote turn on. It has a single remote turn on wire. This, along with these, can go where the factory amplifier is located. This end will plug into here, and this is what all our RCAs will connect to. If you don't want to put this underneath the seat, they make 2 extension cables that will extend these, allow you to move it to another place in the vehicle. To get this factory amplifier off, it has 4 Torx screws. When removing stuff from factory like this, put the screws back in, or put them in a bag, or put them someplace safe that you can give them back to the customer when you're done with the installation. In case he would like to ever put this back in, they'll be able to remove whatever we've done, screw this back into place. They won't have to go looking for screws. And we end up with this nice bracket here. Speaker plug wise, these can just plug in and go up underneath the carpet across the front here out of the way where you'll never have to see them. That's a good enough plan for those. This harness is going to plug in at this end, and it can come around this way, and that'll eat up some of this length that we have. The problem that we always run into with the DSR1, these RCAs, they're all the same length. What you end up with is this massive end that just drives me crazy. The only way to do this and have it like have some semblance of, and don't get me wrong, they're not the only ones that do silly stuff like this, is to find something big enough and spread them out like this that we can then attach our amplifier to and have it lay flat and not just be some giant bundle of whatever. That plugs into this end. A lot of the times I like to mount these underneath something where you're not going to see them. Let's be honest, they're kind of ugly. I also don't want to put them somewhere where they could get tugged. They need to be in a place where they're easy enough to service. In this case, like if I could remove 2 bolts and lift this up and see, that would be cool. I'm going to think about this for a couple minutes and try to come up with some kind of plan. I can get a 9" by 7.5 piece of plastic that fits onto my bracket and then fits into the car. If I mount the DSR1 over as far as I can to the driver's side. That'll give me enough room to fan out my RCAs. I can attach them all down and have room for them to come in 1 through 8, and then have my other harness go around to plug into the factory. This is the plan that I've come up with, and then I can take it and mount it this, screw it back into the car, and it'll all be one piece. It'll just plug right in. The first step will be to get this screwed down and then start drilling holes to zip tie this whole thing into place. And this is what I had in mind. This can now plug into the car. This will talk to the car, do all its AR communication. Our remote turn on is over here. And then I have RCAs 1 through 8 lined up. I can come in with my RCAs. I'll zip tie those in at the end. And this will keep it all nice and laid out and very tight. I can screw it back in with the factory brackets. That's what it will look like underneath the seat. It's just sitting here. I haven't screwed it in place yet. But what I did do is the 2 speaker harnesses, the 2 darker gray, I untaped those from the bundle. They're now going to be located underneath the carpet here, and the white one, it's attached back to the factory zip tie point and plugged into place. Our RCAs, once we get to that, they'll come out from here, come across the front and attach. Our speaker wires are going to come underneath and plug in underneath here. We're a long way from that happening. We need to get over to the bench and start wiring up the amplifiers.